You have floated this idea that you may run for president. If you ran, you would run as an independent.
Right.
The last sort of billionaire independent that ran was Ross Perot. That didn't work out so well for him. Your friend Kevin O'Leary tried his hand at politics. Didn't turn out so well for him either. What makes you think you'd be successful?
I think the climate's a lot different. You know, Ross Perot from Dallas, from Texas, doesn't live far from me. He actually was doing very well and then decided to drop out and then get back in. I think somewhat similar to the climate back then. I think people are tired of the ultra-partisan politics. I think people are tired of having to take sides. I think they want someone who respects both sides, who creates opportunity for everybody, regardless of whether they're Democrat, Republican, independent, or whatever. So I think the opportunity is there. It's just a question of whether or not I want to do it.
You think the timing is right? You think Americans are ready to say enough of two parties? We're going to try a third option?
I think without question. I think they're tired of it. Sick of it is a better word.
What tells you that?
It's just the feeling you get when you talk to people. I think even the fact that Donald Trump got elected is a reflection of that. I think he wasn't elected so much because they loved his policies. I think he was elected because he wasn't a politician. And I think that attitude is still in place. And I also think people are disappointed with the way our president is managing his presidency. And so I think there's an opportunity. Let me put it this way. I think the presidency right now is ready, fire, aim. And I think we need to aim before we fire on a few things. And I think that's where I would bring that's different.
Let me talk about those tactics, in particular with the NAFTA negotiations.
I mean, I think it's ready, fire, aim. It's let me go out there and say something, and then let's see what happens, see what the reaction is.
But he brags he's doing it like a businessman. Is he operating like a businessman?
That's not what a businessman does. What a business person does is come in prepared and understand both sides of the argument so that you can negotiate. But you don't get the sense with President Trump that he's fully educated on all the issues. And so look, if he would come around and close a deal, let's say, which he hasn't done yet, he hasn't really closed any deals, and said, here are the reasons A, B, and C why I did it, then maybe we would have more confidence in him and understand his perspective. But we haven't seen that yet.
You've been critical. You said America needs better leadership. Why would Mark Cuban's leadership be better?
I mean, I remember a conversation I had when he was just Donald Trump as opposed to President Trump, and it was prior to one of the debates, the CNBC debate. It was a business-oriented debate. And I said to him, why don't you just go out there, go to a small business and show off? And this is when I still thought he had a lot of business chops, and just sit down and talk to him about their business, kind of like we do on Shark Tank. Let's just talk, let me see how I can help you. And he goes, let me just tell you something. Mark Cuban and Donald Trump don't go to someone's house or business and sit there and have dinner or have a meeting. That's just not what I do. And that's just not how I work. For so long, we haven't paid attention to the people who need help everywhere. You know, whether it's middle of Kentucky, whether it's downtown Chicago, the south side of Chicago, wherever it may be, I think we've ignored a lot of spots, and I think that's the difference in leadership that I would bring. So
spotlight on another CEO right now, Mark Zuckerberg. He came out and apologized for Facebook's role in data mining. Do you think he should have apologized? If you were CEO of Facebook, would you have apologized?
Yeah, because you just have to get that out of the way. Sometimes when you make a mistake, you just have to admit it, learn from it, and move on, and that's what he's done.
Do you think people have the right to expect privacy? Because that seems to be where this conversation's going. But you know, if you read through the 5 pages of terms and conditions, they're not doing anything they said they weren't going to do.
Well, first of all, congratulations for reading through the 5 pages in terms and conditions, because that's important. You know, unless you understand what's going on, it's hard to really understand the issue. And so, do people have the right to privacy? Absolutely. Do people have the expectation of privacy? More often than not. Do people have to make the right choices in order to gain that privacy? Absolutely.
You talked about having better leadership style. Your leadership was challenged recently. Sports Illustrated came out with the article about the Dallas Mavericks. You know, you said you were surprised, you were ashamed, you hired a third-party investigator. In this day and age, is it okay for CEOs to say, you know, I'm so high up, or owners, I'm so high up, I'm so far removed, I didn't really know what was going on?
Do you know what happens in the newsroom?
I know what happens in a newsroom. I mean, what do you think happens in a newsroom?
I have no idea, right? I mean, but seriously, I mean, you know, every company grows to scale, and it's difficult for someone to know what's going on. And in my case, I wasn't the CEO. I had a CEO that I let run, and unfortunately, he was one of the people that is being questioned. But at this point in time, we have investigators. We'll let them investigate. We brought in people that were completely independent. So once the investigation is over, we'll learn, and we'll see what happens. I'm not making excuses. I'm glad that people spoke out. You know, you don't hear me saying to anybody, don't speak out. In fact, once I found out, I stood in front of all our employees and said, say what you need to say. Talk to who you need to talk to. If you want to talk to the press, go talk to the press because whatever happened, I want it all out now. I want to learn from it.
What have you learned?
That it wasn't just about treating people equally, that you can treat them equally, but don't necessarily treat them the same. Women might have a different perspective of a situation than a man would. And to think that, well, this is how I think a man would handle it, so this must be how a woman's going to handle it, that was wrong on my part. And it was a tough lesson to learn, but I've learned it.
Are you going to bring those ideas to your other companies as well?
Course.
Like more women at the table?
I was just going to say, I went through and had somebody, because I was curious, I didn't know how many businesses I'm currently invested in that are women-owned, founded, or operated. And out of the 100 active, 46 were owned and operated or founded by women, which I thought was not bad. And so we created a roundtable that we're allowing them to communicate, and hopefully we'll learn from them, communicate with all of us, and share ideas. And so hopefully the different perspectives will make us all better business people.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.